Okay. Hi everyone. Good afternoon. Hi Kenna, you can unmute your video now.
Okay, good afternoon, Aluchi.
Yeah, good afternoon. Okay, so is 12:33 p.m. This Thursday, the 12th day of November 2020. And yeah, we're excited over here. I hope you're all excited where you are. My name is Oluchi Johnson Achibiri, and this is the MSMEHub.org live streaming session. As you know, the MSMEHub.org is a free online resource developed by Faith Foundation for Nigerian entrepreneurs. MSMEHub.org, and they'll have access to free, current, fresh information. And this information has been expressed in different formats. We have articles, videos, infographics, and yeah, whatever is your preference. This live streaming session is another format that we have continued to use to provide free information to our Nigerian entrepreneurs. Okay, so well. Would say that if 2020 were a movie series, we would say that it has pushed the boundaries of cliffhangers. I mean, first it was the COVID-19 pandemic, which, by the way, is still ravaging some nations or many nations. And then came the protests. Then came the aftermath of the protests, which has left many Nigerian businesses speechless and insurance companies numb. The events of this year, particularly in the month of October, has led to a huge loss in revenues, means of livelihood, properties, and ultimately lives. And these losses were accompanied by spate of lootings, vandalism, burning of several shopping malls, government-owned buildings, even police stations, local government councils, and traditional institutions were not spared. So there's just been a whole lot of chaos across the nation. Some people lost it all, and they are now back to square one, particularly because some of them didn't have insurance, or the insurance they have does not cover damage to property from war and riots. So they are not even sure how they are going to begin to pick the pieces of their business and life. Over here, we understand that governments, some organizations, and even some individuals are trying to, provide support to MSMEs and help them build their businesses. But the big question is, will these pockets of support be enough to mitigate the risk of a potential recession or depression even? Will it be sufficient to help these businesses reestablish and bounce back to what they were prior to now? There's just a cloud of uncertainty hanging over the Nigerian economy. Hence our topic today: how to get business funding in uncertain times. So our guest today is Ikenna Nwosu. Ikenna is an award-winning chartered accountant with several years of experience in finance, risk, and strategy. Ikenna has the ability to start from the scratch, hence the fact that we reached out to him today. I mean, he's demonstrated it by various pioneer positions ranging from strategy to enterprise risk to internal audit, and a clear focus on doing things in a better way. He's no stranger to this platform. We love to have him here. So once again, hi Ikenna, how are you doing today?
Doing very well, Oluchi. Thank you very much for having me here.
Okay, thank you for coming. We're always glad to have you here. So essentially in the next few minutes, we'll be talking about, how to get business funding in uncertain times. Because the truth is that people are looking for money, they are funding to fund their business or to, just see how they can pick up the pieces of their business. So if you're a small business owner out there, I'll suggest you grab a cup of coffee or any beverage that you prefer and enjoy the show. And don't just enjoy it alone. Please, please, please let your friends know. Share the link on social media. You can put it up on your WhatsApp status. Let them know that there's a show going on right now on msmehub.org and YouTube page that they can leverage for their business. We'll also like to mention that we're streaming just on YouTube and we're not streaming concurrently on Instagram or Facebook like we would normally do. So without much further ado, let's just go right into it. So yeah, Iken, I think the first question I'm going to ask is, what are the business funding or support opportunities that that are available to business owners out there, especially those that were affected by this crisis?
Okay, then. So in terms of business funding, of course, the list is never exhaustive. There are quite a number of people who are willing to provide funds to businesses. In fact, there's a saying that there's plenty of money looking for where to go. So there are quite a number of people looking for where to put their money, looking for good, viable business opportunities to put in their funds. And I'll probably just mention a few that I'm aware of. One is the NIRSAL, as it's called. Which actually means Nigerian Incentive-Based Risk-Sharing System for Agricultural Lending. That's such a long name, but it's just abbreviated to mean NISAL. Now, this is actually a CBN-funded project, but it's focused majorly on the agricultural sector. So this means that people who are in that sector can actually get access to loans. They have a couple of programs. There's the Agri SME scheme, where you can get up to 10 million naira at 5% interest rate. There's also the Anchors Borrowers Program, still within the ecosystem of what NISAL does, still focused on agriculture. And that one is aimed somewhere between farmers and the processing companies, and where they also give loans at about single-digit interest rate, still about 9%, without any collateral. So NISAL is focused on agricultural lending. We also have the Development Bank of Nigeria. It was set up a few years ago, and they also have a mandate to provide some sort of support, financial support to SMEs, because the government does realize that SMEs are quite an important engine of the economy. And so Development Bank, the way it works actually is that it works, it provides these loans via what we call participating financial institutions. Those participating financial institutions include commercial banks that some merchant banks and some microfinance banks. So Development Bank of Nigeria, DBN, may not give you the loan directly, but will give you the loan through these participating financial institutions that you know. And so for them, they have flexible payment periods up to 10 years with about 18 months moratorium. The moratorium is a period and usually an initial period in the loan where you do not have to make any repayments, either principal repayments or interest repayments, depending on how it's structured. So they actually allow you, so that the funds they make available to you, you could actually invest it, make some returns before you begin to make some payments. So DBN in its own is involved in all kinds of enterprises. As long as you're a customer of PFI, the participating financial institution, you could get access to those loans. We also have the LSETF, the Lagos State Employment Trust Fund. Now they've been in existence for a number of years, and they also focus on training and providing loans to MSMEs at a very reduced interest rate. I think it's about 5%. So they've been doing this for a while, and then they focused, they have a couple of programs also. So the SME Owners program, where you could apply to the LSETF and get up to 5 million naira. Now, and I think for that program, you're supposed to have, I think, 2 guarantors. Your business is supposed to be able to show evidence that is able to hire people. So that means the government is looking at some level of social impact. So you're able to solve the problem of unemployment. Of course, because it's Lagos State, they also want to see evidence that you live in Lagos, you reside in Lagos, and that would be evidenced by your LASTRA ID. Then they also want to see some personal tax registration details. They also have the Micro Enterprise Owner Scheme, and that one is for micro enterprises. So for this one, you probably do not have a registered business. Then if you get up to 500,000, and there's also even the Micro Enterprise Startup. You're about to start, you can get up to 250, even without registration. All these are made available by the LSETF. And I think recently they launched the LSETF W initiative, W there standing for women. So
I didn't
that's
get
what
that. Can you
LSETF W initiative. So the W initiative.
Okay, W initiative. Okay.
Yes, yes. And I guess the W stands for women. Now, this particular program is focused on female entrepreneurs residing in Lagos. And they can access up to 5 million naira for their businesses. Some of the requirements in this case include the business must have been operational for at least a year, must have run the business for at least a year. If you need more than 500,000, you can get up to 5 million. Or if your request is more than 500,000, then you must be registered with the CAC, either as a limited liability company or probably as an enterprise. Of course, you should have evidence that you work in Lagos or you live in Lagos. That's your last ID proof. And your business operations must be within Lagos. There should be evidence of tax payments, and you should also have your government-issued ID, which is the national ID, the driver's license, or international passport, any of those ones. So those are some of the requirements that the LSETFW initiative would request for before they actually allow female entrepreneurs to get access to up to 5 million. But like I said, they also make available the SME Owners scheme, make available to everyone without any specific gender bias. We also have the Tony Melu Foundation grant, the TEF grant. Now, this is called a grant. I've been talking about loans previously. A difference between loans and grants is that grants may not need to be repaid. A loan will need to be repaid. A grant may not need to be repaid. So the TEF Foundation provides a grant of $5,000 non-refundable seed capital, $5,000. It's open to any sector of the economy. In fact, it's actually open across Africa, so it's not just Nigeria focused. And so their major focus is on businesses that have the potential to create jobs and revenue within Africa. So that's $5,000 available. The application each year, I think, happens between January and March. So, we're looking forward to another January. So between January and March 2021, we expect that the application for the TEF grant will be open. Next year should be the 7th batch or the 7th cohort. And the foundation has stated that they've been able to provide support to 9,000 employees in the past 5 years. That's also another one that's available. We also have another fund called Growfin, Grofin, Grofin. Now, Growfin is a finance provider based in Mauritius, but has its tentacles spread across different parts of Africa. It's also focused on Africa. Nigeria is one of the big markets in Africa. Now, Growfin provides business loans and business support for SMEs. And I think they said they've been able to provide support to about 735 SMEs, up to the tune of $395 million in the past year they've been in operation. Now, Growfin has a bias for some sectors. So they want to focus more on educational sector, healthcare, agro-processing, manufacturing, or key services. That's where they want to focus on. That's first port of call. And they provide between $100,000 to $1.5 million with repayment periods between 3 years to 8 years. I think for some of their expectations, they expect that your business will be in operation for, say, at least 2 to 3 years. And your annual turnover should be 1.5 times the amount that you're requesting. Also requires some form of personal guarantee or collateral. We have quite a number of banks, commercial banks in Nigeria, who have certain products that are focused on SMEs or focused on maybe particular gender. We also have the Bank of Industry, BOI, as they are called, BOI. BOI working in support with the government and also with the CBN. They've been able to provide certain funding avenues, and some of them specific to certain areas. So I remember there was a funding avenue they provided that was specific for the fashion and beauty business. So anyone who's in fashion or beauty business could apply for that particular loan facility. I think for them, it's open to registered businesses that are about 2 years in operation. And I think they require that the business must belong to a relevant trade association. There's also there are a number of them. There are some of them that are focused on technology. Some of them are movie making within BOI. And there's also the Graduate Entrepreneurship Fund, GEF, within BOI. Now, the GEF fund is open to youth corps members, who want to go into entrepreneurship. Their loans are 0%, so it's a loan, so it has to be repaid, but there's no interest rate. So it's 0%, and they can get up to 2 million naira with a tenure of about 3 to 5 years. And I think they have to bring one guarantor. So these are various opportunities available for different businesses of different sizes. The MSME space is a very wide space. So if you look at from the micro, the difference between a micro and the high end of the SMEs might be very large, but some of these ones, they tend to cater both to the micro, to the mid, to the small, and also even to the medium and also to the small. In fact, if I would even mention, I'm aware that even the Nigerian Stock Exchange, there's an innovation they have on ground called the Growth Board. Now, and I guess this is more focused towards the companies on the higher end of the the medium enterprise scale. So the Growth Board sort of is an innovation where that allows companies that have high growth potential to actually seize the opportunity to raise long-term capital. So being on the stock exchange means that they will get long-term capital. And so it's not exactly a loan sort of. So they have opportunity to raise long-term capital and also promote liquidity. The Growth Board of the NSE is focused on startup SMEs and tech companies that have high growth potential. And there are a couple of categories, but your market capitalization should be at least 50 million up to 4 billion or thereabouts. So those are some of the
thank you very much, Ikenna.
Yeah.
Well, I tried to keep up, but I was able to get some. As you were saying, I just remembered we on our own parts, we have there's an article that we just pushed out that focuses on some support initiatives for MSMEs who are directly affected by the crisis. We have are looking at organizations, government, and even some individuals. I mean, there's something that I know Access Bank is doing, and like you rightly mentioned, LSCTF is doing a lot there. They have all sorts of initiatives out there. And then there's what do you call it? There's something also on, just a couple of brand names. So my colleague will push out this link on YouTube, for people to just, look at that article as well. So, and like I said, you mentioned a lot of things. You talked about NESAL, talked about micro enterprise owner scheme, startup scheme, and all that. Talked about SME owner scheme, and you even talked about Tony Elumelu grant. But the thing is, we're even looking at immediate, immediate solutions now, where we have people who from one day to the next, because of maybe the vandalism or whatever, they lost everything, and they probably don't have insurance, and they probably don't even have what we call maybe all the documents that would be required. So okay, I think the question I will ask now is, what will determine if a business is qualified for some of these opportunities? And then when you do that, you also look at for somebody who don't have, is not registered and all that, that just had a shop or, an outlet in one of the shopping malls, and then everything has gone poof. How can the person position themselves to get this money or this funding?
So to speak to that, and maybe just to speak around certain avenues that were specific to the crisis. So for instance, during the height of the COVID pandemic, when the lockdown was still in place earlier in the year, NISAL actually brought out something called TCF, Targeted Credit Facility. So the CBN made available about 50 billion naira to NISAL, and it was specifically for businesses and households that were affected by the COVID pandemic, especially that time when there was a lockdown, when people who had to go out daily to fend for themselves couldn't go out. And that was made available. And so the NISAL was the one who, through this microfinance bank, was the one that tried to disburse some of those loans to businesses and to households. And I think I think they were able to do that to a large extent, at least from the information that we have available. Some loans were disbursed to businesses at reduced single-digit interest rates, 5% maybe up to next year before it goes back to 10. Working capital for a year period, term loans up to 3 years, just trying to take care of businesses that were affected by the COVID-19. And if you even look at in recent times, looking at the damage that happened, say across the state during the unrest, the civil unrest that happened recently, the LSCTF came out, the Lagos State government through the LSCTF actually requested people who had businesses that were damaged, due to the riots and things like that. So they requested them to apply via the LSCTF, and those applications were going to be reviewed, and then they were going to try to provide some form of support. I think it was called the MSME Recovery Fund. That was what LSCTF called it, MSME Recovery Fund, and it was specifically for the recent crisis that, where people might have had their businesses damaged, and their shops looted. So those are some opportunities that were specific to this crisis. I'm sure there'll be some others, everybody trying to do what they can within their little space. So these are government agencies, probably will have much more funds, but I know that there are also NGOs and even personal people who are also trying to see what they can to help, to help as many people as possible. If we are looking at what will determine if a business is qualified for these opportunities, the truth is that as many as there are different providers of finance, as many as there will be different criteria. Because the provider of the finance is the one who will determine the criteria for which he will give you his facility. And so there's really no one size fits all. But based on what I've said so far, based on what I've seen, some providers will request for some level of operations that should have been in business for maybe a year or 2 years or 3 years. And of course, being in business means that it's evidenced by certain things. So when they say you've been in business, they expect you to provide some level of evidence to back up those things. And for some of them, they accept startups. But of course, if it's a startup, you have to produce a business plan. That's how you know that you are a serious startup. Some of them are focused on particular sectors of the economy. Some of them are available for all. So for instance, the ones in Lagos State, the LSCTF, because it's Lagos State, will have particular interest in ensuring that the people is providing those loans to are people who are residents in Lagos, so that the funds can impact the economy of Lagos. So they'll be requiring you to produce a last ID card as evidence that you actually live in Lagos, and maybe a tax registration certificate or something like that. Some of them will request for personal guarantees, some collaterals, some would not request for collaterals. Some are grants, meaning you don't need to pay back. Some are loans, you need to pay back. Some are loans with 0%, so you only need to pay back the principal. While some are loans with minimal interest rates, usually single digits. So you pay back the principal and a small amount of interest. So some of them would require your business to be registered, either as a limited liability company or as an enterprise, business name as we call it. And for some of them, for those focusing on the micro, they would not mind. They will not mind if the businesses are unregistered. So as many as there are different providers of finance, some of these providers of finance are also focused on different aspects, and their focus will sometimes determine the requirements that they would ask. But it appears that there is something for everyone at every rung of the ladder of the MSME scale.
Okay, so I think that explains it more. So like you mentioned, there are different opportunities out there. So the criteria is different for each. And so some may require some sort of documentation and evidence to show that you've been doing this business for a while. Some also accept startups. Then some are focused on, a particular sector. And then some, even not just the sector, there are some who are also focused on a particular region. Like we have a lot of things happening in Lagos here. There are also some focused on a particular gender, a lot of initiatives around women, business owners. And then, some are available for all, some are restricted to. And then you talked about, some of them being loans, and then of course, some being grants. So what this essentially means is that, what do you call it? People may just have to do a lot of research now and just see how this can favor them, or how they can position themselves to leverage some of these opportunities. Okay. Another question I had here was, are they target, but I think you've sort of answered it. Are the target areas, are there like specific target areas or sectors for these packages? And is there a preference for a particular gender or region?
Indeed. Some of these providers have particular preferences, but there's almost somebody willing to set out funds to any viable business opportunity. But there are some of them, like the NISAL I talked about, is focused on agriculture for different reasons. Agriculture is supposed to be the largest contributor to GDP, and it's one of the government's plan to, take down the rate of unemployment. So there's a big focus on that. There are certain providers of finance who are focused on sectors that have potential for social impact. And by social impact, I mean things like job creation. Youth unemployment is a big deal. So certain providers of finance, especially the government providers, are interested in businesses that are able to employ others. So that would reduce unemployment. So businesses that have that potential, stand a higher chance. There are the ones that focus on some level of environmental change. So, if you're into waste, into recycling, water, or energy, there are certain funds that are focused on those ones. And of course, we have quite a number of funds that are specifically focused on the female gender, trying to ensure that we have more women empowerment. But of course, there are also some that are available for, there's really no specification. Any business, as long as it's a business and it's able to show value, you're able to use it to further your business objectives, and you're able to pay back the loan. There are providers that are also willing to make available such. I've made example of funds that are, for Lagos State, which is a region, but I'm sure that other states that also have similar structures where they also provide funding for persons resident in their state or for persons who are from their states.
Okay, thank you very much. So, like I mentioned at the beginning, I know one of the major issues, that came to light now is insurance. I mean, it's become clear that from one day to the next, everything can just go poof. And if you do not insure, and then even for the insurance companies, they may have to now revisit, the premium and how whatever it is that they are collecting monthly. Anyway, that is another conversation. But what I'm saying is now, so how important is insurance, and do you have any type of insurance that you would advise small business owners to subscribe to?
Okay, so how important is it to insure your business? I think generally speaking, primarily, insurance is for protection, or we can say it's for cover from the rainy day. That's what insurance is meant for. The rain may not fall every day. Rain may not fall every day, but the day it falls, you want to be in the position where you are not unnecessarily bothered that you'll be drenched, that the rain will drench you and soak up everything you have in your pocket. That's actually how insurance works. In this part, in Nigeria, our insurance culture is weak. And so the way we treat insurance, I'll give an analogy. Since I've said insurance is like a cover or a protection for a rainy day, it's like, someone wants to go out in the morning, it's rainy season. So let's assume that we don't have climate issues and weather is still as predictable as it used to be many years ago. And so we're in July. And in July in Lagos, you expect to find lots of rains. And so you're stepping out on a typical July day in Lagos. And there's a big expectation that rain will fall. And you have an umbrella too. But then everybody has to make that choice to say, do I want to take this umbrella along? Because the umbrella seems like an additional load to maybe the bag you want to carry. So do I want to take this umbrella along? There's a possibility that I will carry it and not use it. I will go now and rain will not fall today. So the rain will just waste my effort. I'll take umbrella and nothing will happen. So everybody seems to have to make that decision. Should I take this umbrella along today? When there is a possibility that rain may not fall, I will just carry additional load throughout the day and bring it back. Should I take it along and rain might actually fall and I'll be protected? So I think that's where many of us are, many businesses are, in trying to take that decision as to, should I take this umbrella along for this business journey, or do I leave it and just take my chances? And I think that's where many businesses are. So taking insurance is like going along with that umbrella. It might look like an additional burden, a small one per se, but if the rain falls, if the rain does fall, or let's say when the rain does fall, it provides protection for you, gives you a cover that reduces the amount of things that you need to be worried about. But when you do not have that umbrella, when you step out and the rain actually falls on that particular day, then there is a big likelihood that it will stop many of the objectives. You might not be able to step out. You would have to stay under a shade, and God help you, the shade is not a proper shade. Some rain is still going to beat you, and you'll not be able to go to where you're supposed to go because rain is still falling. So it's that kind of analogy, and I think that's where, from that point of view, businesses should take a look at it and consider, if this premium, because for insurance you're paying a premium, if that little premium you need to pay, if it's something that will be good enough to give you peace of mind over things that may happen in the future. So for insurance for small businesses, what kind of insurance will I advise? I think it's dependent on the type of business. So we have all kinds of businesses. So your type of insurance will be dependent on your exact situation. So for instance, we have the fire and special perils insurance. So that insurance package is supposed to cover things like fire, lightning, explosions, storms, riot strikes, special perils. So depending on the kind of business you run and your location, consider how prone. It may not happen in a year, but it might happen. So when it happens, what's the risk? We have a lot of we've had a lot of cases of fires. Fires, happen in the past number of years. It's been regular in big markets, and you find people losing plenty of their assets. They lose their working capital. They lose what they've had in business for a long time. This insurance policy might just be what is needed, to take care of that particular issue. There's also the goods in transit plan, goods in transit policy. Now, this will particularly be suitable for any business that, if you're into haulage business, so you move goods that are not yours from one location to another, you move other people's goods. Now, the goods in transit provide some sort of insurance for those goods as they are being moved from one location to another. Anything could happen, armed robbery, bad road, banditry, whatever happens, it provides protection that if it should happen, you would not be unnecessarily bothered looking for the driver, looking for the person that hit the truck. There's some protection that, okay, at least the goods are covered. We also have property insurance, and any business owner can, take that up. It will cover the cost of the equipment, the signage, the furniture, and the inventory within your location in case of fire, flood, or theft. And of course, we have motor insurance, pretty popular. But it's just that the most popular one is the third-party insurance, because that's the one that is enshrined into the law. Third-party insurance is, I think, it's 5,000 naira, and so technically, third-party insurance protects a third party, protects when you hit somebody else, so that protects that person. So that's third party. But third party does not protect your own vehicle and does not give you any protection from your own loss. So that's where the comprehensive insurance comes in. So motor insurance would come in for any business, for instance, where your vehicles are a major asset. You're into any form of taxi business, where vehicles, or any business where vehicles are a major asset. Motor vehicle insurance will become very important because it gives you some level of peace of mind that whatever happens, I don't have to pay out of pocket. And that's what happens. Since sometimes, trouble doesn't send us a letter, it doesn't warn us when it's coming. So what insurance sometimes does is that when trouble does come, you don't have to pay out of pocket. You can actually fall back to somebody else, fall back to the insurance underwriter to pay. We have burglary insurance, we have business interruption insurance. There's the group life insurance, which is actually in the law for businesses that employ more than 3 people. So that's supposed to cover death in service. So if you lose any employee while in service, that's supposed to take care of that, not put the business under unnecessary pressure, to try to be a good corporate citizen. There's the product liability insurance, and there's also the professional indemnity. So there are quite a number of insurance products available in the market, and but each business would need probably a different type or a different variant, and that's where it would be good to speak to, say, an insurance broker or the insurance underwriter. So they're professionals in this. They have an idea of what policies can meet your needs. So if they know what your concerns are, if they know the risks that you're trying to protect against, they're able to provide you with a policy that will give you peace of mind concerning that.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much. Yeah. So you mentioned a lot of things in terms of insurance. I mean, why it's important that business owners, just take out a particular policy or look at what is favorable to them. But I know one thing you didn't mention is something insurance in the case of damage to property, in the case of war and riots. And I don't think that is something that business owners usually, because I mean, this is how best we can define this situation. And I don't see business owners doing that. But do you think that is something they should begin to consider now? I mean, seeing that in the space of, was it not last year that we had the whole xenophobia thing, and a lot of people lost things, and then now we have a situation like that again. So it's something that they should seriously begin to consider.
Very true, very true. And that, protection from special perils, riots, and civil disturbance. Indeed, I've mentioned that it's important for each business to take a look at the risk that it faces and how it's able to protect itself. If you take a look at it, if just do a risk assessment, what's the possibility that these things can happen? It appears that there are certain businesses or certain locations, so locations of business types that are prone to this type of thing. So if any issue like this happens, there seem to be certain locations where the mind of these hoodlums would easily go to say, let us attack. It's easy for them to get to. It's easy for them to get access into, easy for them to take things that are valuable out of. And so shopping malls become a very easy target. Shopping malls these days are built to be aesthetically pleasing. So they may use glass covers. So that advantage in terms of the beauty might become a disadvantage, during this type of times. But so such shopping malls and the tenants within those shopping malls should take note of those kind of things and realize that they are easy targets. They are prime targets for those kind of things. And factor it as one of the insurances that they would need to take to protect them. It will go a long way in actually giving them peace of mind around this thing, so that if it ever happens, if and when it ever happens, you would not be adding that to the list of concerns and the list of worries that will be coming up, that will at least be taken care of. So indeed, it's something that needs to be considered, something that needs to be considered for many businesses. So look at your own business, consider what are the risks that you face, what are the most probable things, or even the least less probable, but if they ever happen, there's going to be a big impact. That's actually what insurance helps us deal with. So things that may not happen frequently, but if they ever happen, they are likely to have a big impact. Then such a risk is a good candidate for insurance, because you're going to pay a small premium. You're going to pay a small premium compared to the value of what you want to insure, and that is all you need to do. And upon occurrence, if it ever occurs, you'll be getting some sort of support to bring you back to the position where you were.
Okay, okay. Yeah, so it's safe to say that prior to now, I mean, the high streets were like vantage point for businesses to locate their businesses. But now it's looking as if they are no, because they are like the first place that once there's a riot or whatever, that the vandals attack. So it's now
Yes.
looking as if it has the advantage, like you said, has become a disadvantage.
Very true, very true. So apart from the shopping malls, we look for businesses that are in a good location. But indeed, that good location might mean something else on a wrong day. So
on a wrong day, yes.
You're in a business that's easily accessible. You're in a location that is easily accessible. So the fact that it is easily accessible for customers on a good day might also mean that it is easily accessible for hoodlums on a bad day. Okay, you're in a business where you have inventory. So it's not just that you have tables and chairs inside. You actually have inventory and things that people can take away. So those things should come into consideration and should actually guide the type of insurance you're able to take. So even if it's just your computer systems you have, you can do property insurance. So that's a small token that is typically paid just to ensure that if anything goes wrong, you're able to be restored back to where you are. The furniture, the computer equipment can be bought back and restored, but as if nothing ever happened.
Okay, still on the insurance matter. So do you think that there'll be an increase in insurance premiums after now? I mean, if yes, how do you encourage business owners to insure their businesses? I'm saying this because, one of the main issues why most of these businesses did not insure their business is because of that token that they were, required to pay. Now we're saying that they probably may have increased the whatever the rate is. So how will a business that they couldn't pay the premium as at then be able to pay it now?
Okay, so looking at the insurance industry, it's like I've said before, we don't have an insurance culture. So insurance penetration in Nigeria is pretty low. The insurance industry has been doing a lot of what it can to see how we could bring more people into the net. And of course, they know it is a price-sensitive business. However, they also realize that they would need to get these premiums to be able to provide cover if and when things happen. So yes, pricing becomes important. At the moment, I might not see an immediate increase in insurance premiums. And that's because the premiums are considered on different things factor into the premiums. So the type of cover, of course, the premium you pay for, say, a motor vehicle insurance might differ from what you pay for a special perils insurance because there are two different types of cover. And then some other things that factor into your pricing might be the optional benefits. For example, if you do a car insurance policy, there is a car insurance policy that covers you from accidents, major repairs, but does not cover for riots and the like. There is another one that covers for accidents, major repairs, and also includes riots. So optional benefits under each policy might actually increase the premiums. But there's available options for each person to take. It's also important that each person looks out for what are the eligible discounts. Some insurance companies give eligible discounts. I'm aware that there are insurance companies now that actually give you a discount if you don't have a claim. So you've been insuring with me for the past 2 years, and in the past 2 years, you've not had a claim. Some of them actually say in the third year, we would give you a reduction because, hey, we've not had any reason to pay out to you. So these are things that people should also look out for and be able to take cognizance of and take advantage of those kind of things. Sometimes your payment cycle might also influence your premiums. If insurance policies are annual, if you choose to pay for annual, it might be cheaper than when you choose to pay for maybe monthly. You want to pay it per month or something like that. That is also a factor. Then I think overall, what determines the premiums for the side of insurance companies is the risk assessment. They assess the risk for the particular business. They assess the risk to say, what's the risk that this can happen? And so based on that risk, they then produce a number, a percentage, which they use to derive the premium. So based on the risk assessment, yes, we've just had, crisis. We just had a COVID pandemic. We're not out of it yet. I don't know if anybody can confidently say that there is a risk that another pandemic will happen soon. I'm not so sure anybody can confidently, we're not out of the one we are now, but nobody can confidently say another one will happen. So it's possible that, the rates might still remain the way they are because there's nothing exactly that things would go worse than they are now. So that is risk assessment. And so the businesses should not be afraid that premiums should go up. Take a look at your businesses, consider the insurances that you need to take, and actually go up to the brokers and the underwriters to see what percentages that they give before you make your decision. So don't stay away from making the decision because you think the price will go up. At least take a step forward and get to know what the prices are, get to know whether they actually increased or not before making your final decision.
Okay. So it's, I like that you're optimistic that nothing much may change. There's also the whole rumor around the second wave and all that, but that's by the way. And then, but I like what you said around deductions if you don't have a claim. That's good. I actually didn't even know they have those kind of packages where after you've paid over like a period of time, they now give you deductions because you've not, you don't have a claim. And then you talked about also paying annually being relatively cheaper than paying on a monthly basis. So just being able to look at what would work best for them. Okay, so I know we've been talking about, getting funding. How do you position yourself to get funding? But now this is a personal, I'll ask, would you advise business owners to take loans this period? Because there are a lot of uncertainties and any forecasts that people made at the beginning of the year, I know most of them have been thrown out the window. So if you're even, and I know that some of these banks are a bit too rigid when it comes to repayment. They don't want to know. I don't see that clause where they factor in there's a pandemic or there is a protest or crisis or vandals have burnt you or whatever, and all the forecasts that you made did not work. So you're not able to pay back this loan. So what would be your own, expert advice in this season? Because people
Okay.
need funding, yet they also need to cushion the effect of getting funding that now becomes like an extra burden on, the precarious position that they find themselves in.
So very true. I agree that many of the forecasts that were done at the end of last year into this year for 2020, many of them have been revised once, twice, thrice, as the year has continued to progress. But considering, based on uncertainties, whether and inaccuracy of forecasts, whether business owners should take loans, I would say that first and foremost, there would always be uncertainties. There would never be total accuracy about the future because none of us really knows about tomorrow. So even if you look at it, there will always be uncertainties. Nobody really knows exactly, totally, completely what will happen tomorrow. So that means that even in our forecasts are built of assumptions, and those assumptions, we'll try as much as possible to be realistic. We'll try as much as possible to make them based on available data. But, there's a clause that many investment managers will tell you, and they will tell you that past performance is not a predictor of future performance. So it's just to remind you that life itself is a risk. So looking at that and looking at it from that point of view, I would then say that even this period, there's still some level of uncertainty, even though it is heightened. But it is still part of the business environment, sort of. So each business will have to actually assess and evaluate whether it should take a loan. And some of the key things to look at for each business to assess whether it should take a loan, I'll mention some of them. But I would also mention that some of our financial institutions have been quite responsive. They've been responsive to customer demands. So earlier in the year, during the height of the pandemic, the CBN and commercial banks, merchant banks, and I guess even the microfinance banks, they actually agreed to give borrowers a moratorium. So people who had loans, because of all that happened then, they agreed to suspend payments, totally suspend payments, give them a moratorium in the middle of the loan. That was not in the clause initially, but it was important for the government and the financial system to do that to ensure that, businesses do not completely collapse under the burden of debt. Let's not forget that, the borrower paying back the loan is good for the borrower and also good for the lender. No responsible lender should be in business just to give people money, kill their businesses, and have to sell off the businesses to pay back. That's not responsible lending. So the banks actually had a moratorium. They paused payments, and it was based on request. So and that's something that people actually need to step out to do. So go to your bank, talk to them. They actually did pause repayments. They created moratoriums and even allowed for restructuring of the payments based on the impact on businesses, because the impact was different for different businesses. Now, I've said each business has to assess whether it should take a loan. And some of the things that I think that should go into the assessment is number one, is the business plan viable? The business plan that you're making based on, if I get these funds, this is what I want to use it to do to make money. Is it viable, especially under scrutiny? Now, that's because we have a tendency as human beings to overestimate our abilities. Sorry. We have a tendency to overestimate our abilities. If you call somebody and ask him on a scale of 1 to 10, if you call a young boy and ask him on a scale of 1 to 10, how good do you think you are in playing football? He would rate himself very high. Okay. And this is somebody who probably just plays on the street and maybe score 1 goal in a week or something like that. It's just a general human tendency. So it's usually good to have your plans scrutinized by an objective order. So have somebody look at your plans objectively, ask you questions about those plans, and then you have to think through it to see how objective those plans are. Usually, the process of availing loans actually is supposed to do this scrutiny, but just to mention that it's your responsibility first to even be sure that what I want to use this money for actually makes sense, and there is even a good probability that I will get it out if nothing happens out of the ordinary. It's also important. Second thing to consider is the fact that your return on capital should be higher than the interest. It's important. So whatever loan you're getting at whatever interest rate, when you do your business plan and you scrutinize it and you're as realistic as possible, it's important that the returns from the business are more than the interest. Now, what that does is if you ever take a loan at whatever interest rate and the business you want to use it for will not be able to produce enough returns to pay back the interest, it means that from the beginning, you would have to dip into your previously existing capital to pay back the principal and interest of that loan. So it's important to be sure that the business you want to put it into is going to be able to make enough returns to even pay back the interest. And then finally, I would say businesses should also consider to understand what exactly the fund is to be used for and where the repayment is coming from. So this money I'm getting, what do I want to use it for? Okay, I want to use these funds to buy new machinery. It's clear what you want to use it for. I want to use it for working capital. So I want to use it to pay some goods that I've bought in the past. Or I want to use it for seasonal business. We're stepping into the December season now, which is seasonal for some businesses. So it's clear that the funds I'm getting now are to drive this expected increase in activities for the December festivities, December and New Year festivities. So it's important that there's a clear understanding of these funds I'm using for. I'm using it exactly for this purpose. And the repayment of this loan is coming from exactly this place. Those things should be clear. They shouldn't be guesswork or they shouldn't be just assumed. So I think if each business does this kind of assessment, it will be in a better position to know if it's safe or not to take loans, whether at this time or whether when all of this goes behind us.
Okay. Wow, that is very, very, I call it enlightening. So you talked about that before people take loans, that you still advise that they take loans because there's what do you call it? There's no point saying that there's always risk. There's always that element of risk, and there's no point saying that yeah, the forecast it was bad, and we can't really know what tomorrow has, but we will continue to move forward. But that you would advise that they assess and evaluate their business and know whether they should take a loan, and they should look at these criteria in their evaluation. One, the viability of the business. This business that they want to take this loan for, is it viable? And that would be looking at having a very clear understanding of what the purpose of the loan is and where they're going to get returns from. So it's not just enough to say, okay, this is what I want to do. It has to be clear how we're going to make money from this business and get the returns. And then of course you talked about that the returns on the capital must be higher than the interest ab initio. So what it also means is that to get loan, they have to understand numbers. Exactly. They just have to understand it.
So that's also a very important component, understanding the number, because the loan is numbers. So understanding the numbers of where to come. You mentioned risk. So yes, taking loans is a risk, but many people will tell us that in life itself is a risk, and that if there is no risk, there is no reward. You have to take a risk to get a reward. So it wouldn't be a state of not taking loans at all or not taking risk at all, but it's going to be taking calculated risk, and based on where we find ourselves, it will be taking even more calculated risk. So go ahead and take a risk, but let your risk be calculated. Understand the nitty-gritty of what you're doing. Let it be explained to you. Get somebody that will explain to you. I see people who take loans not clearly understanding what they mean. So they are giving interest rates that might sound low, but they don't understand that those interest rates, if somebody tells you I'm giving you a loan for 5% monthly, okay, 5% monthly, that sounds very low, but 5% monthly can invariably mean something like 60% per annum. If you look at it, in a year, if you pay 5% every month, and you keep it for a year, it's practically 5 times 12. So that's 60% per annum. So it's marketing in a way, not to tell you 60% per annum, because that will scare you and make it 5%. It's important to understand. And some businesses can take 5% interest per month and still do well. And so that's the point of where I said, know that your returns will be able to pay back this interest. So understand what that 5% per month means for your business. What does it mean for the amount you've taken? How much are you supposed to be paying every month? then look at your business performance. Is your business, with the addition of these funds, able to provide more than that interest amount? So if you're only able to provide exactly the interest amount, then at least you will not be in debt. Just that you're working for the financial institution, but at least you will not be in debt. But if you're able to provide, if the business is able to provide more than that amount, then you're able to pay off the loan provider, and you still have something additional as the value that that loan has created for yourself and for your business. So
Okay,
understanding the
thank you
numbers is
very
key.
much. Okay, now, wow, how time flies. We have just 2 minutes remaining. So maybe the last question I'll ask is, so what are, generally now, just for business owners, individuals, what are the good money habits to have now? Yeah, as we try to wrap up.
Okay, so good money habits to have this season, their habits. So it shouldn't just be something we'll do now. It's something that we should try to cultivate and keep on with it. And one of those things may be this season to cut unnecessary expenses. Now, generally, expenses can be divided into two. There's something we call discretionary spending, and there's something we call non-discretionary spending. Discretionary spending is something that's within your control. You can choose to do it or not. If you don't do it, heaven will not fall. But non-discretionary is almost outside your control. It's something you have to do. You have to eat. If you don't eat, then I don't think you'll be listening to the presentation for next week, because you would have passed on by then. Certain things are non-discretionary, but some of them they're within your control, okay? And so it's a time to reduce some of those discretionary spending, and it's different for different people, okay? And examples of that will include things like eating in versus eating out. You could reduce the rate at which you eat out, and eat a bit more in. It saves some more money. Consider traveling. Okay, so do you have to travel? If you have to make a trip, you have to travel. It might be expensive to travel sometimes. Are there other methods to achieve whatever goal, whatever reason for which you want to travel? Large celebrations, okay, making large celebrations this period, because it's a family habit, it's a family tradition. I gave birth this season. It's our tradition to do a big naming ceremony. If you don't do that naming ceremony big, we never fall. So I think we should try to cut unnecessary expenses. Number two, it's important to have a budget. It's important to have a budget. A budget is a financial plan, okay? And not just running, they permit me to use this word, anywhere benefits. I know we're short on time, but let me give this example. The word anywhere benefits, I coined it from a strategy we used back in the day. So while we were smaller, we used to play football in the compound, with the rest of people around us. Some people were very good footballers. They could dribble, they were good strikers, they were good defenders. But some people were not really good at any of these things. And so they only had an anywhere benefit strategy. And what does that mean? It means that once the ball gets to them, they were not looking for how to pass the ball to the next person. They were not looking for how to convert defense to attack. Once the ball gets to them, they just shoot it wherever it is facing. So they would shoot it into throwing. They would shoot it into goal kick, into anywhere. They were really not contributing to helping the team to score a goal. There was no plan to pass it to the next person so that we could achieve something. That's anywhere benefit strategy. And that's what many people run their finances on. It's anywhere benefit, impulse buying. I show up today in this place and I see somebody shouting, buy this, it is cheap, it is cheap. There's no consideration. Do I need it? Do I need it now? Do I need to get it? Impulse buying, they said it is cheap, let me buy it. I'm buying it now, and I need it who knows? In the next 5 years, this thing may be important. Let me buy it now and keep. You've bought it, you held down money, hoping that sometime in the next 5 years it will become important. It's all right. Another point might be to buy local. So buy Nigerian-made goods. I think that will also help, especially with regards to issues around price of imported goods. And finally, don't be eager to jump at juicy offers this season. Beware of scammers. Be wary of free money. Always do your due diligence. Don't jump at any chance to provide your bank details, your BVN, and your card details. Scammers on the rise, and so as much as many of these loan providers are, they want to be open to provide support. Okay, scammers are also aware, and they've been looking for ways to go around these people, to deprive people of funds that they even do not have. So please, if anything is too good to be true, it's probably so. Don't be in a haste to jump into any quick money making scheme this period.
All right, thank you very much, Ikenna. We've really, really exceeded the time. We said a lot today. We talked about the different institutions that are providing funds for business owners. I hope that we can reach out to all these institutions, individuals. They are out there. You do your research, and like I said, my colleague posted the link on the article that we have of some support initiatives for MSMEs. We also talked about, some of the different criteria that some of these institutions would require for people to access loans. Then we now talked about the importance of insurance for business owners to have insurance now. And then you highlighted the fact that even some of these insurance companies have where the deductions that they do, if in the event that you've been paying a premium for a particular period of time and you've not been able to make a claim, they deduct that. And then, yeah, we've said a lot of things. And then we also mentioned that the CBN was able to, have some sort of moratorium in the middle of loans just to see how they provide, cushion for some of the SMEs that have been affected by both the pandemic and the crisis. And yeah, we have really, really exceeded the time. It's been such a pleasure having you here, Ikenna. My name remains Oluchi Johnson Achibiri, and our social media handle is at MSME Hub across all social media platforms: Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. And then the website again is www.msmehub.org. So Ikenna, what's your social media handles? Your social media.
I can't remember it.
Oh, this is rich. Okay. Yeah, you look. This is really rich. Okay. Okay. So yeah, from us. Yeah, thank you everyone for joining us today. Ikenna,
Yes.
your final words.
I'll remember it next time, I promise.
All right.